Hey guys, what's going on? DuffKing56 here, back with another topic commentary. Oh my gosh, what do I have on the screen? Well, it's probably Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies. There's a little session I did for someone, but he didn't end up using the recordings, so I'm going to throw it up here for you guys. I'll probably put it in two parts and use it for two different commentaries. So I'm very excited to get into the topic, but before I do, I have to say that happy Thursday, first of all. Thank everyone that it's almost Friday. But seriously, I did a podcast the other night. I recorded it last night being Tuesday night, and today's Thursday, so that means that was 2 nights ago. But I'm recording it today, it's Wednesday. But anyways, I recorded this podcast. It's called the Let's Cast podcast with a guy named Jeff and another guy named Sparhawk. And it's going to be on his channel, and it's about an hour and a half of me talking about Let's Playing with these two other content creators. So it was a really fun time, and we really got in some great discussion about... It was mostly about me, because they asked me a lot of personal questions about my channel. They want to know about my style and stuff like that. But we ended up getting into some really scintillating conversation, and that is just a sexy-ass word, man, scintillating. I've been using that for the past couple days. It's like the word I've fixated on. I don't know, I seem to fixate on these big buzzwords, as I said, the $5 words, and they're so awesome. Anyways, go check it out. The link will be in the description, and the link will be in some sort of annotation. It won't be very intrusive on the screen. I hate that. So, without further ado, let's actually get into the topic today. This one's going to be kind of interesting because I'm not a very big English guy, English being the subject. Obviously, I'm a linguist. I'm talking to you right now in the English language, which can be debatable. It's my version of English. It's Duff King English. But seriously, I want to talk about literature and how I feel like it was a lot different back in the day, back when I started to read. This is kind of why I'm taking it back in back then context. Is when I started to read, when I started to form myself as a reader, and through my middle school. Now, things have changed a lot today, so I want to talk about how literature has affected me as a person, and hopefully I can get you guys' opinions on how literature has affected you, kind of what you feel like literature should include, what kinds of literature that you're more accustomed to than others, since the times have definitely changed from when I was in my elementary and my, secondary is high school, so it'd be just middle school education. But anyways, I want to talk about how I felt, how literature was for me back in the day. Back in the day, literature I think was a lot more standardized than it is today. There was a lot less technological advances as far as how we can expand literature over different sorts of medium. That, or I wasn't aware of it because I was a child. I don't think many children have some sort of worldview that includes a lot of technology in it. But either way, it was a big deal, and it was all books. Literature was a lot of books. There was very, very little internet sources. The internet did exist. I'm so funny because I said exist. But there wasn't a very big sort of electronic sort of influence in literature. So I'm going to talk about from the book perspective. Now, I started off just about as anyone else would have reading the Harry Potter series because that was when it was big. I started to read when that was on the rise, the beginning of the 7-book series, I guess is what you would call it. I started reading one with my dad. My dad would read to me from it every night, and then as a reward for getting a good grade, after we read 2 together, he bought 3 for me. That was actually the first time, go figure, we used the internet to order a book. It was Amazon, I'll never forget. I was so excited because it was just amazing, and that definitely affected me as I know it today. The book series is unforgettable, and it's definitely the poster child of the early 1990s sort of generation that's up and coming. I know people have been able to experience Harry Potter when they started to read, but that would be in the middle of the series, sort of after that 90-92 era sort of came to be. The books weren't around back then, but when I started reading about 6 years after that, that's when the books sort of came to the surface. And it's definitely one of the hallmarks of our generation as far as literature goes. I don't think that I honestly think that the literacy levels of our generation, as low as they are, would be much lower had Harry Potter not existed. But then again, that might be very narrow-minded of me, because how am I supposed to know, if everyone worldwide, at least countrywide, has read Harry Potter? I know certain sects of religions don't allow it because it's quote-unquote black magic, but I would have more than one word for them to say to their faces. But I'm going to move on. Some other pieces of literature that really affected me in middle school were poetry. I was a very big consumer of poetry. As feminine as children considered it for males to like it in middle school, I was very much into it. I was very much into the underlying symbolism, everything about it. I was very, very poetically minded. And it was very easy for me to write poems, very easy for me to rhyme, but I was actually much better at free verse anyway, because I was able to communicate my ideas in an artful fashion. I had very good construction with my poetry. And I don't know, I think some of the greats like Shakespearean sonnets were great. Actually, my favorite poet was Jack Frost, and I love some of his work. Fire and Ice is probably one of my favorite poems ever, now that we're in a poetry talk. But a lot of the poetry that we read, short stories that we read in middle school, really affected me. Once again, all out of books, which is very interesting too, even though the technological age is sort of on the cusp of it actually being popular and popularized. And the reason why, I don't know, this is sort of tangential, but not really. The reason why I decided to make one of these commentaries is because my dad came up to me the other day, or my mom came up to me the other day, and one of her best friends' daughters had a book published on Amazon, and they were really happy about that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, first of all, it's not very difficult. I mean, you have to have a book, you have to be a great writer, I'm sure, but I don't think it's very hard to get sources online published, as opposed to on paperback hard copy in real life today. So it was very interesting for me to think about that, and it got me thinking, like, man, back in the day, if you were a 14, 15-year-old author, 16, 17, I think she's 18, 19, but, if you're a young author back in the day, you're considered a prodigy. Like, look at Matt Christopher Paolini, who wrote the Eragon series. He was very young when he wrote it, and that ended up turning into a big series and a big movie and everything, and that was another good book series that I was exposed to when I was littler. I say littler like it's been so long ago, but it really hasn't been that long for me. It's very interesting to reflect upon that. But things really definitely changed after middle school. But some of the more notable experiences in middle school was me reading Of Mice and Men, To Kill a Mockingbird, and let's see, there's one more that I really thought that I was able to read very nicely. And was it Last of the Mohicans was another good one, but most of the Shakespeare plays I liked too. I loved reading Shakespeare because I actually was able to read the Old English. It's definitely interesting, and things definitely changed in high school for me. Most of the sources we were reading that weren't book were internet, and the internet sources were fairly intelligent, so you were predisposed to this high reading level, and you were really thrown into it, and you're really forced to sort of understand it this whole time. And it's very interesting to think back and sort of mull around in your mind what it was like to start reading internet sources, just to start reading only on the computer. Because who seriously read their English books in high school? I did, maybe not, a little bit, I don't know. But seriously, it's very interesting. You see this turn in literature from this paperback in your hands source to now you have audiobooks and ebooks, internet journals, and graphic novels online. You have web comics, all of these different mediums to sort of express the same ideas, and it's all considered literature to me. Literature to me is everything that tries to express or communicate an idea, and any sort of medium. Painting is literature. Anything that you can surmise a story from, really. Signs, billboards. It goes back to what I've been talking about all this past year about literacy and different modes of communication. I think it's all encompassed under the idea of literature for me. Literature is this sort of overarching idea of a bunch of things trying to communicate ideas. So it's definitely, though, these books really played a part in the formation of me And, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird, of Mice and Men, very famous books. I mean, you consider them classics. You know, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is another one. Tom Sawyer novels were very big in high school, especially when I voice cracked all the time. It's very interesting, and they all played a part in sort of my personal formation of my ideas and how I think, how I act. And reading at such a young level the Harry Potter series and just being an active reader definitely helped not only my reading level, so to speak, but my linguistic aptitude, I should say. My ability to be able to talk, communicate ideas in an effective and constructive manner, and being able to communicate myself to others, just ideas in regular conversation. It doesn't even have to be e-conversation, so to speak. It could be anything. And you really can't kid yourself in saying that being a good reader doesn't really transmute to any other aspects or areas in your life, because you read everything. Even if you're not reading words, you're reading mouths, people, emotions, signs, gestures, everything. Reading is everything. And it all comes back to, I think, your early experiences reading. And the books that I read always fostered some sort of search for knowledge or truth, or, you know, the themes of the book allowed me to sort of reflect upon them and apply them to my life. And not only just that, but adapt and reform them to my personal principles and stuff like that. Like, you try to emulate the heroes in the books that you've read. You try to emulate the good guys, and you try to not be the bad guys, because you always think, you know, in your head, even if it's just fairy tales that you've watched, yeah, I don't want to be the bad guy, I don't want to be the evil guy, I want to be the good guy, unless you're genuinely a bad person, but to you that would look good, even though you'd know it was evil. So anyways, relatively speaking, you always want to be the good guy in your perception of the good guy. And you always emulate it from those books and the fairy tales, the stories you were told at bedtime. And I could not imagine my life if I'd been deprived of any sort of curiosity or reading experience. It would be awful. It would be a life without... It would just basically be like taking someone that you've raised in a box and like putting them in the real world and expecting them to survive. It just doesn't happen. And somewhere in this ramble, I think I got my point across. I think reading is very important. Reading literature. Reading all kinds of literature. Being able to be proficient in multiple modes of literature definitely facilitates some sort of better understanding of the language that you're reading in, and that's very important to me, and it should be important to you. You should hold these things very important to yourself. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this commentary. Literature's affected me, and it's affected you, so let me know, how has literature affected you, and what are some of the memorable books that you read and have affected you today, formed you into the person that you are today, commenting on my video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This has been DuffKing56. I will see you guys later. Check out that podcast if you haven't now. 2 hours of Duff King goodness. How could you deny yourself such bliss? I'm serious, guys. Have fun. Have a great night. I'll see you guys. Bye.
Gonna need some juice soon. Creepy crawler! Take to the I to the A, some bitch! Neat biting maggot! Eat it, you nasty squag! Time to put you down, puppy dog! Woo! More shit to kill with! Man, why does it always do that to me? Someone want to help me out here? Die, you undead flesh addict!